fifth? You had Connor McDavid fifth? Let's get into it with the lead. Welcome into Oilers Nation Everyday, another live on the road edition of the show. Shout out to AMA Travel for getting us down here and letting us bring the Sports Closet studio on the road. Tyler Yaremchuk, he is Jason Gregor, and his appearances this week, he's joining us all week, are for Papa John's and The Brick. The Brick, proudly serving Canada since 1971. Coast to coast, as well as a 100% Canadian-owned operated company. They're proud to support Canadian furniture manufacturers and showcase their best products throughout their 200 stores across the country. You can find out more by visiting your local Brick store. Gregor, how did you handle it felt like our first real night in Nashville last night.
Probably not as well as I would like, Tyler. I'm not gonna lie. It's you know what? Hey, work hard, play hard. So I'm probably played a little too hard, but I'm here, and you know what? It's good. I know. I just want to say, Oilers fans, how many Hart trophies did Wayne Gretzky win? Do you know which one he was unanimous? Don't get that upset. It does not matter. Okay, Gretzky won one Hart Trophy unanimously, 1982. Connor McDavid won a Hart Trophy unanimously in 2021. It's fine. You don't need to freak out. Oh my God, Seth Roba. Who cares? Did McDavid win?
Yes.
Did he win handily? And a discussion. Like I think the people really caring about it, I don't understand why. Who cares? One guy's allowed to have a different opinion. You can disagree with it. David Pastrnak had a pretty damn good year.
Yeah.
On the greatest regular season team of all time. Yeah. So you know what? If he gets one vote, whatever. Do you know that Wayne Gretzky, 1 year, he actually wasn't even on a ballot. There were 63 votes.
And someone left him totally off.
Wasn't even on. Then back then, there was only a top three.
Okay.
And he wasn't even on. He got 60 first place votes. He won handily.
Yeah.
But he wasn't on someone's ballot. I don't know who, because back then it wasn't public. But the point is, it doesn't matter.
The only thing for me is, one, writers all know that these are going to be public after.
Yeah.
I just look at it a little bit like, are you doing it or are you doing it because you want to be trending? That's the only reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know Seth personally.
But outside of Edmonton, I'll tell you, no one in San Jose, right? No one in Florida is like, oh, I can't believe McDavid wasn't unanimous. It's only Oilers fans. So does Seth Rohrabaugh, is it going to benefit him to be trending in Edmonton? I don't know. I honestly, I just think there's a lot of outrage for it, and I don't think it's needed.
Fair enough. We have a loaded show live on the Oilers Nation YouTube, where the first comment of the day goes to Chris Ward, who said, Frank announced Seth Rohrabaugh's prison sentence. So, Chris, that's hilarious. I will give you the last word on that. We will move on. There is a lot to get to, like I said. But first, that was my first time experiencing the NHL Awards in person. I thought there were some really good moments mixed in there. I thought Connor McDavid was kind of funny doing his little back and forth with Biz. I thought Jim Montgomery's speech accepting the Jack Adams was very, very good. And also big shout out to the NHL for pulling off the surprise with the Stelters showing up for Connor's Hart Trophy as well. I thought that was a really neat moment. It was cool to be in the building for that.
I've never been to the NHL Awards, because usually it's in a different city than the draft. So you know what? And hey, we lucked out. We had we were row 11 or 12. I don't know what it was on the floor. It was great seats. And you know what? That's like the first real big award show I've ever been to. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And you know what? There might have been, some would say, hey, it drug on a little bit too long with some of the performances, but you're in Nashville. Of course, you're going to mix sports and music together. It makes perfect sense. And I had no issues with it at all. I agree with you on Montgomery. You know, Biz Nasty's character, man. Biz is a very funny guy. You know, we had a few beers, him and I, last night, so it's a lot of fun. He's a good dude. He's a really he's an authentic personality. Like, what you see on camera is what you get off of it. He's just,
1000%.
He's you know, he's always going 100 miles an hour, and you know, he's a funny guy. Like, he has lots of good chirps. You know, he can take jokes. He likes to rib it out to guys, and obviously they raised, I think it was $20,000 for the Stelter Foundation. So big win overall. And you know, the only surprise to me actually was that Matty Beniers won so handily for the rookie, because I'm a voter, and I told people my votes. I had Powers 1, Skinner 2, Beniers 3. I looked at Beniers' numbers. Like, he had a good season, but his second half was very below average, to be honest. Right? I shouldn't say below average, probably very average for a rookie. It was good. Like, it would have been on pace for 40 some points. 16 goals, decent year.
Mhm.
Owen Power, you go look at Owen Power's numbers, man. For a defenseman, like you got to go back to Drew Doughty as a rookie in 2009 when you're playing almost 24 minutes a night. When he was on the ice, the Sabres, who aren't a great team, were plus 17 5-on-5. And when he was off, they were minus 24. Like that's a pretty big impact for a guy who was playing a lot of minutes. And I'll tell you right now, like if I had to pick, like I think Stu Skinner's got, like I think both Skinner and Power, when we talk in 5 years, are going to be more impactful players than Beniers. That's what I think. But that's not what the award's for. But
yeah,
I thought, you know what, it was. I think some people just sometimes Beniers' first half was great. And I think he kind of,
once you get the narrative, it's hard to almost reverse it later in the year, right?
Yeah.
We see that with awards like the Selke. Like Selke was an absolute runaway because, I mean, even if there were voters who were like, I don't watch a ton of Bruins hockey, I'm just going to give it to
I looked at all of his numbers though. Like when I vote, I try to ignore, I don't read anybody else's. I want my vote to be for me personally and my own. And so I do all my own research. I don't ask, like sometimes I'll talk to players about, just get their thoughts on certain awards, just to say, hey, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? I don't say, hey, I'm voting. I just ask them what they think of them. Yeah. But to me, I never start compiling my vote until the last week of the regular season, because now I've got 95% of the season done. And I look at the whole compiled. If you have a great finish, you have a great start, that's awesome. But what's your whole season like? And, Matty Beniers had the 13th most points for a rookie since 2016. Like decent, but he wasn't a dominant. Like I didn't think he was a dominant rookie to win as going away as he did.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one as well. All right, we're going to move on from the awards talk after the NHL threw a little after party down just away from the rink. And it was hilarious to see the look on Jay Downton's face when he walked in. I ordered a drink, Jay ordered a drink. Then he pulled out his credit card and went, hey, I'll start a tab. And the lady goes, oh, no, it's all on the NHL tonight. And that is why we're feeling a little groggy today. It's the NHL's fault, not ours, Greg.
It's true. It's very true. I blame Gary Bettman.
Okay, we got some breaking news coming in right now on the show, so we are going to move on to the Papa John's news desk. It is Terrific Tuesday, which means you can get 50% off all orders at Papa John's.
All order, baby. Just put in the code word terrific before your order. 50% off. It's unreal.
papajohns.ca. You can see it right here on your screen. Breaking news right now, Gregor. The Colorado Avalanche and Montreal Canadiens have made a move. Alex Newhook is going to the Habs in exchange for picks 31 and 37. So a first and a second rounder. The Montreal Canadiens picking up some center depth. You know what this tells me? They are out on Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Colorado or Montreal.
Montreal is, yeah.
Yeah, that, you know what? That's that's an interesting one for me. I look at Colorado. I think this means Colorado's getting JT Compher is what I see from this.
Oh, that's
I feel this is they're like, hey, we want our guy. Now they're going to run with him down the middle with McKinnon and Johansson.
So Alex Newhook is a pending RFA. No arb rights there, though, but Colorado, again, would have needed to give him a good raise off his ELC, 22-year-old centerman. And for the Canadiens, I mean, I kind of like the way Montreal's been handling this rebuild so far. They have a couple of veterans still in that lineup, but you go Suzuki, you're going to get Slavkovsky next year. We'll see what he can do in his second year. Hopefully he's healthy. Cole Caulfield in that group. You add in Newhook. You got Kirby Dach last year. Like, they got the pieces coming together here in Montreal.
Yeah, my only concern is Suzuki, Caulfield, and Newhook. They're all pretty small. And like Newhook's what, 5'10"? I know people will say size doesn't matter, except it does matter when it gets to the playoffs and all the teams are pretty even in skill. And you got a bunch of 5'10" guys, and the other team's got a bunch of 6'2" guys. Well, guess what? On average, you're at a disadvantage.
Yep.
And so it's kind of an interesting trade for me. I like it. I like it more probably for Colorado. Newhook, you mentioned, is a young guy, but he's on a team that's a championship caliber team. He's a third line player.
Yeah, that's fair.
And there's nothing wrong with third line players, but that's kind of what he is. So, Montreal, what did you say?
31 and 37.
So a late first and an early second, if I have to do an early analysis, I kind of like this deal more for Colorado.
Interesting. Obviously getting some financial flexibility potentially with not having to re-sign Alex Newhook. With Landeskog on the LTIR, the Avs could have about $15.5 million in cap space, but They only have 7 forwards under contract next season. They got to sign a guy like Bowen Byram. I'm just looking at, and obviously JT Compher pretty high up on that list. They made the deal for Johansson, and the question was kind of like, oh, is Colorado looking at Johansson as their Lars Eller replacement or their JT Compher replacement? Maybe this tells us it was more towards the Eller thing, and they're hoping to bring back Compher. Tyler Mulick says Colorado maybe flips those picks? ? Yeah, maybe it's not a Compher thing. Maybe they're working on a secondary deal as well.
Potentially. Joe Sakic, I give him credit, man. And it was funny. We saw him at the airport.
Yeah, we did. And we saw him. We've seen Joe Sakic like 3 or 4 times already on the trip because he was with us walking back.
I look at Colorado, and there's a team that's still highly competitive, but it's like, hey, let's get a few picks in here. We'll make some picks now. Maybe they trade those later on, right? Either the pick or the actual player that they take for more things down the road. But I just think here's a sign from a caliber top end team that's saying, hey, Alex Newhook, we like you, but we don't think you're the answer for what we're doing moving forward. Because I think in Montreal, he can play in their top 6.
Yeah.
But on a cup contending team, I don't think he's a top 6 player today. And I'm not sold he will be on a cup contender moving forward.
Yeah. Taves to Edmonton says they got a little bit of size with Slavkovsky, Doc, and Arbor-Jack guy as well. Wi-Fi. Yeah, I mean, they do. I think that's fair. But down the middle, I worry that maybe they're building a little bit just to make the playoffs, not to win the playoffs.
Okay, so he said Kirby Doc.
Yeah.
Slavkovsky. Why? Yes, but we don't even know how good Slavkovsky is yet. He's a 19-year-old player. Like, look, I just say, look at the Oilers. And Oiler fans, I talked about this, and Oiler fans used to be like, oh, no, you don't need size. Oh, really? Draisaitl, McDavid, Kane, Hyman. And then look at the size of the Oilers' blue line. Trust me, Montreal, they got three of their more skilled forwards are like 5'10" and under. I'm telling you, it is not a recipe for success. Show me a team that's done it. That's all I ask. Show me the team. Look at Colorado's forwards. Nichushkin, huge. Landeskog, Rantanen, huge. McKinnon, absolute beast. Who is small on their team?
Sam Girard.
Guess what?
Yeah, I know.
Played 7 games. Wasn't in, when they won the cup. Was Sam Girard in the lineup? No, he was not. They had Cale Makar, who's a freak of nature. Doesn't mean you can't have 1 or 2, but you can't. Like, Montreal's got Caulfield, Suzuki, and Newhook. I'm telling you. Sorry, Habs fans. This is not building to being a winning team, in my humble opinion.
It's not exactly breaking news. I think it was reported last week, but Brad Treliving confirms Sheldon Keefe will be back behind the bench with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not a stunner there, but how about this one from Cam Neely? The Bruins are operating under the assumption that they will be without both Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci next season. They got rid of Taylor Hall, and everyone went, oh, this is just, they got their money for Bertuzzi now. I'm sorry, they got to spend that money down the middle.
But who? JT Compher? Like, honestly,
I don't know what you do.
There's not a lot of centers available in the free agent market right now. So I'm like, they got rid of Taylor Hall, but like Taylor Hall was a top 6 forward on their team. Now they're getting rid of Krejci and Bergeron. There's half of your top 6 gone.
And they were both on value deals last season, and they would have been if they came back again this year. And now you talk about having to replace them at market value. Like, I mean, you're not going to replace Patrice Bergeron, but like trying to fill those holes in your lineup at market value is going to be a tough task for Cam Neely and Don Sweeney out in Boston. The other piece of news, Darren Dreger has some reports that, he just said this is the move Montreal is making when because it's clear PLD's focused on LA. Sounds like it's going to be an 8-year extension, according to Dreger, for PLD in LA.
So, and speaking of LA, here's the names I'm hearing if that trade comes to fruition. Gabe Villar, Iafallo, and Kupari.
So basically their entire third line of like quality. Iafallo's 30, but like Kupari's young. Velarde's young. Those are good gets for the Jets.
Yeah, like if they get all 3 of those players, man, I was just like, wow, that is. I'm not like their third line is pretty good, right? And so they got really good center depth. But is Dubois a number 1 center? That's going to be the question. Maybe he becomes one. But I look to date. If he's number 1 center, he's definitely a low end number 1 center. He'd probably be a very high number 2 center.
What's going on in the chat? Brian Wood says Mark Scheifele will be a Bruin. I mean,
for what though? What are you going to get? Like, what do the Bruins have? They got blue liners. That's the one thing they have in abundance of. They got a very good blue line.
They don't have a first round pick for the next 2 years. They don't have a second round pick for the next 3 years. And they're sitting here with $10.9 million in cap space and only 6 forward signs. So Mike Riley buyout, that seems likely at this point if they don't find a way to just dump him for free. Maybe they move on from some more money on that back end as well. A guy like Derek Forbort.
Now, here's one guy as a free agent center. Ryan O'Reilly could replace Patrice Bergeron.
That makes sense, actually. Yeah, veteran guy, defense first kind of thing. He'd slide into that lineup nicely. I wonder what they'd end up having to pay him, though.
Well, he's definitely gonna, his $7.5 million happening. So, like O'Reilly only played 50 games last year, right? Yeah. What do you have, like 30 points? I think it was. So, I think if you were looking to replace Patrice Bergeron, I'm not sure there's a better option as far as a very close, similar style player, than Ryan O'Reilly. So, Ryan O'Reilly to Boston would make more sense to me than re-signing Bertuzzi if I was the Bruins. If I had a choice, when I look at what is my biggest need.
Someone asked in the chat if maybe Hellebuck's involved in that deal. It doesn't sound like it. Frank today on DFO Live said the market for Hellebuck it's not really there right now because everyone knows the cost is high, and that high cost, both cap it wise and asset wise, is throwing things off a little bit. It's preventing teams from really digging into it seriously. So there you go. There's the news desk for our friends at Papa John's. It's Terrific Tuesday. Use the promo code Terrific. Get yourself 50% off at papajohns.ca. A lot going on. I mentioned a bunch of GMs having their media avails today. Cam Neely, president of Hockey Ops, had his as well. Ken Holland spoke to the media today. You were down there and had a chance to throw Ken Holland a couple of questions. This ties in to our Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question of the day. What's going to be the future of Klim Kostin? Give me a % chance Klim Kostin's back as the Sherwood Ford Giant question of the day.
Well, listening to Ken Holland today and on the record and then talking to some other people in the organization, like Klim Kostin, I understand it that, hey, Klim Kostin would like a raise. And the Oilers would like to give him a raise, but
wouldn't we all?
Like the concern for Kostin is if the Oilers qualify him, and I've said this if they qualify him, which would be like 825, he files for arbitration. His season in arbitration probably could get him 1.6.
Yeah.
And Edmonton they don't have the cap space to do that. They really like Klim Kostin. So, but it comes down to, is it a fit? And I know originally when they talked about extension, his camp was looking for upwards of 1.7.
Yeah.
So I think, them qualifying him is part of like Ken Holland basically outlined today. He goes, hey, if we don't qualify him, that's just negotiations, right? Now, keep in mind, Vegas didn't qualify Brett Howden last year, and then they re-signed him like 2 days later.
Yeah.
So, part of it is because you're worried about the potential. So they say, hey, Klim, we're not going to qualify you for ARB. Now, you are a UFA, but will you on the open market get potential what an arbitrator would give you? Probably not. So I think that's the plan they're going. Like Klim Kostin, I know like his family, his sister, they're very close. She lives in California. Like going to the KHL, like, I don't know why he would do that. I know he had a good offer to go over there, like and so financially. It's only money, right? And I get it. I shouldn't say only money. Money's obviously pretty important, but
if you're Kostin and you've maybe found a home here in Edmonton, like an organization that took a chance on you, let you kind of become an NHLer because he really wasn't before this year. I don't know, maybe for you long-term wise, taking the 1 or 2 year deal here at a slightly lower cap it, that might earn you some more money down the line.
100%. So sometimes you have to look big picture, but it's easier when if somebody's offering you $2 million a year and you could only make, 1.1. Yeah. Hey, that's double your money. So to me, it's a personal decision for each player, and they're going to look and say, hey, and obviously he's Russian. He's going to be comfortable playing in Russia.
Yeah.
But, with all the upheaval that's going on right there, like how good is it going to be? I have no idea. So I would say right now, to answer your earlier question about percentage, like Klim Kostin back in Edmonton, I'd put it at like 35.
35. Yeah, I was going to say 50-50 right now. I saw Liam in the chat was asking people the most they'd give him. Oil Fan and Nate both said 1.5 million. Christopher Palmer, 1.25. Sergeant Battle, 1.3. Like, I think you're pretty much I think those people are probably pretty lined up with what Ken Holland's thinking as well. I could see like 1.5 kind of being the outer market.
I think that's the max. I think they'd rather be around 1, to be honest.
Yeah. The other two UFAs, a bit of a part 2 to the Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question, are Bjugstad and Janmark. Bjugstad, to me, has priced himself out of this team. I just don't see how the Oilers
17 goals.
Yeah, like he's going to get north of $2 million.
Probably.
And the Oilers can't afford to pay a bottom six or north of $2 million.
Probably not. No. Well, they've already got one in Fogle, right? And McLeod's probably going to come in. I'm going to guess McLeod ends up like between 1.85 and 2, somewhere around there. Bjugstad, they'd like him. I just don't think it's feasible financially for him to come back. And Mattias Janmark, I can tell that the Oilers have given him an offer. It's closer to 1 million, not the 1.25 he made last year. And so now it's just a matter of him deciding, does he want to test? And you know what? Free agency starts on Saturday. If I'm Mattias Janmark, why wouldn't I? Just like Brett Kulak did last year. Brett Kulak tested the market early on the morning of, and then was like, you know what? There's no better offer than I like in Edmonton. I like it here. Mattias Janmark likes it in Edmonton, right? Connor McDavid had a discussion with him at the end of the season about returning, so he feels wanted here by his teammates. So I think, Janmark might look and say, geez, if somebody's offering me 1.5, I would go. But if the only other offer is 1.2 and I can get 1 million in Edmonton, I could see him staying in Edmonton.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If we had to rank those 3 players in order of chances they're back, Janmark most likely, Kostin in the middle, Bjugstad under Kostin. Is that how you read it?
That'd be totally fair.
All right. Well, drop your thoughts on that in the YouTube chat as well. I saw Shawzy said keep all of McLeod, Bjugstad, and Kostin for a good third line. If the salary cap didn't exist, I'm sure you would. Oh, right. Like I mean, that
would have re-signed already.
The Oilers are just in kind of one of those tough situations, like a lot of other teams are. I mean, we just outlined Boston's got to sign like 6 forwards, and they have $10.9 million to do it, and they got to sign Jeremy Swayman. I actually wonder this. I thought about this. I was going to bring it up. What do they do with their goalies? Like Jeremy Swayman could probably get paid a decent amount if he wanted to. RFA with Arbrights had good numbers. You have the reigning Vezina Trophy winner now, Linus Ullmark, who was rocking a sweet suit.
Like Ullmark's under contract for two more years. Yeah.
So like, do you move Swayman or do you sit there and go, 29-year-old Ullmark? Maybe.
Well, I think what Boston has to decide is if we're going to have a 2 goalie situation, which is fine, then let's have a 2 goalie situation all year long and not try to run one guy. Not saying that Ullmark's the reason they lost that 7-game series, but considering he hadn't played more than 2 games in a row since December, you're going against what you did to win all year long, right? You changed it. But I would think Swayman comes back. I think there's value in not overplaying your starter in the regular season. So losing Swayman, are they going to find another goalie that they could comfortably play 35 games? Pretty hard.
Yeah. There you go. That is the Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question. Only a couple of days left in the month of June. For every test drive out at Sherwood Ford, they're making a donation to the Strathcona Community Hospital Foundation. So head out to Sherwood Ford the Giant. Go hop in the new F-150 Lightning Edition. I think it's cool that it's an all-electric truck with a trunk in the front. That is a neat feature.
What?
Because like there's no engine in the front. So the hood flips up and it's a trunk. There's enough room there for a hockey bag when I went out to the dealership and was looking at it. So pretty neat stuff. Sherwood Ford the Giant. All right. AMA Travel Trade Machine time. Shout out to AMA Travel. AMAtravel.ca. Originally, I was going to build up the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal and see what we're getting here. It sounds like that. I mean, that could happen by the end of our show, potentially. If it is Velarde, Kupari, and Iafallo, who's the winner of that deal? But Dubois is locked up for an 8-year deal. So a fully signed Dubois.
What's his term?
Let's say it's 8 by 8.
Man, if that ends up being the deal,
Dubois at 8 by 8.
I could say I think that's a win for both sides, but I quite like it for Winnipeg because you're getting 3 NHL players.
Yeah.
And Grant, I'm high on Velarde. I like Velarde a lot.
I think he could be like a perennial 30-goal guy.
Oh,
through his mid-20s.
No question. I think it could be. And, Iafallo is just, he's a good teammate. He's a veteran player. He's a solid NHLer. You would, he's not a top 6 in my eyes. I think he's a really good third liner. So.
But that's a guy at $4 million. Like if you use him for a year or maybe even at like this year's deadline, I could see him having a lot of interest from teams. in the sense that $4 million isn't crazy. If a team could squeeze it in late in the year, the cap goes up next summer. All of a sudden, it's a nice contract. Playoff guy. He's gone through a couple of series now for the LA Kings. I could see Iafallo being a guy that they just flip in like 8 months.
Potentially.
Keep the 2 23-year-olds in your lineup if you're the Jets. And
so I like that. I like that deal, but admittedly, like Dubois, I wonder. I think there's more juice to squeeze from the orange if we want to use that analogy for him. And, maybe it gets unlocked in LA, right? So I think there's a chance that deal could work out well for both teams. And, if you're a Jets fan, because it was pretty dire going into the start of the offseason, Hellebuck, Scheifele, Dubois, Blake Wheeler, older and stuff. But if that's a deal they make, I wonder then what they could get for Scheifele.
But then you see Kevin Hayes go for only a 6th round pick at 50% retained.
Yeah, that's just a salary dump.
But with there used to always be this high cost associated with dumping money, right? Like if a team wants to get out of a contract, like you got to pay dearly for it. Think about the Leafs giving up a first for Marlowe, the Flames giving up a first to get rid of Monahan, the Oilers giving up picks to get rid of Zach Kassian. And in this situation, like the read on it is just difficult for me because
Kevin Hayes could play. He can play. Kevin Hayes can play. Like he's going to go to St. Louis and probably be like a second line center.
And all I'm thinking is like if he was a UFA this year, I think he would get more than $3.5 million, or maybe right around $3.5 million. I just can't believe there wasn't a bigger market for a team to offer up more than a 6th round pick. I thought they were going to get like a maybe second for him, even just for keeping half the money.
Yeah, it's fair. It's totally valid when you present it that way. That on the free agent market, you're like, okay, 3.5 mil, and I give up a 6th rounder. Like, I think that's a really good trade for St. Louis. And Philly's going scorched earth. But again, for Philly, all you get is a 6th. Like, why make the trade other than him and Tortorella didn't get along? But I'm like, that's not a good enough reason to just eat $3.5 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that's a win. Like St. Louis, they win that trade all day, every day. And Philly gets nothing. They got a 6th round pick.
And now they're looking at maybe dumping D'Angelo.
Like they're not a cap team. Like what? So if you're going scorched earth, my goodness, you got to get something. Like, I'm sorry, but that's a terrible trade for Danny Briere, in my opinion.
It's not a sell-off. It's a giveaway right now.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting
How does that help your organization? You don't get it. Like, okay, we're in scorched earth. Look at Chicago. They went scorched earth. Look how many first rounders, how many second rounders. You got a 6th round pick. Like, that's a terrible trade. I'm sorry. That's a terrible trade for Philly.
Catching up on what's going on in the Oilers Nation YouTube. Bagged Milk, very active in there as well. Being his usual rascal self. Sam Squatch says, we need Kostin's toughness. We need to sign him now. It's a cap world, Oil fan. We have so much more flexibility if we can find a way to move Campbell. They're not moving Jack Campbell. What's the rule in the YouTube chat? If you talk about trading Jack Campbell, you get put in a timeout for 300 seconds. You can do that on YouTube. You can stop someone from commenting for 300 seconds. So the rule is if you
get a 5-minute timeout.
Yeah, you get a 5-minute timeoout if you bring up a Jack Campbell trade. That's the rule. Because it's not happening. They're not doing it.
Oh, come on. No,
right.
Here's the good news for Oilers fans who are upset about Jack Campbell. Here is my lock of the offseason. Jack Campbell will have better numbers next year.
Oh, yeah.
It's not hard now.
Will you eat cat food if he doesn't?
I'm not saying. Hey, I'm not Tyler Yaremchuk. Or, by the way, we do have to talk to Frank on the pod on Thursday.
Yep.
We do have to talk about the Sean Dursey cat food, because I think there's a strong case that Frank will be joining the Tyler Yaremchuk cat food eating.
Basically, if you don't listen to the DFR rundown, first off, you should. Available wherever you get your podcast from. You brought up the idea. You're like, I wonder if LA would trade Dursey. And Frank was like, you are crazy. He's playing top 4 minutes. I will bet you anything. And then sure as shit, they trade him like 2 weeks later. Dangerous Wade Zinn says NHL GMs are in drunk, silly season. Trades are making no sense. I'm just happy we're getting some news. Another thing that's kind of getting buried a little bit in all these trades came from Elliot Friedman, who says the Anaheim Ducks are not going to qualify Max Comtois.
Hey, read Oilersnation, Ty. I had that 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. Well, he had to be qualified at 2.5 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And I put him as a player of the Edmonton Oilers, because when there's guys that don't get qualified, automatically now you get to buy low.
Yep.
That's just how it works. And I'm telling you, Max Comtois at $1 million, sign me up all day, every day.
What would be interesting is if you could find, because he's a left shot.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has the ability to play the right side or not, but he's a left shot, usually plays left wing. If you could find a taker just to take Fogle off your hands, and then you bring in Comtois at $1 million, is saving the $1.75 million worth the difference in player you're getting? I think it might be a sneaky way to just gain some cap space while keeping some size in.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this though. Fogle has you don't have to. You would get more for Fogle than you would for Hayes.
Oh, Hayes.
And Yamamoto for sure. Yeah. Warren Fogle, he's probably a little bit overpaid, but there's lots of value for what you get with Warren Fogle.
He was awesome in the last 3-4 months of the season.
And he played the last 3-4 months of the season with a wrist injury.
Oh,
right. He didn't, he basically didn't shoot in practice.
Damn.
Right. So I talked.
That might be why he never scored on his breakaways.
Well, you know, what's funny is, he joked about it because when he first injured his wrist, then he scored 3 games afterwards, 3 goals quickly. And he's just like, oh, I guess I should injure my wrist more. He's joking, but he had his wrist wrapped up the whole year. I'd seen it one day and we kind of made a deal because I don't like to talk about injuries if guys are playing through it and that you kind of have a professional agreement. And so it didn't require surgery. He thought he would, he got different opinions through the year. And then they had another MRI at the end of the season, and it doesn't require surgery. It's just going to heal. But he basically, I used to watch him practice because I was like, he would come down the wing and he just really wasn't shooting the puck.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was always just trying a little backhand kind of deke, whatever. Yeah. And then he was like, yeah, I'm basically saving my shots for games.
Only got so many bullets left in the chamber of the year.
Because, it was painful. So, now Fogle is not scoring's hard, right? Yes. The scoring is hard. And, could Fogle be a 15, 16, 17 guy? Maybe. Right. He'd obviously love to score in a few more of his breakaways, but he creates chances. I think he's solid defensively. He's not great, but he's not a weak defensive player at all. Your Comtois for $1 million to replace Fogle in a cap world does make sense. Could Max Comtois fill that role? Max Comtois plays a little bit of an edge, just like Fogle does. They're not Klim Kostin, but they're also they don't shy away.
Fair. Bag Milk is in here. I'm just going to read this to you verbatim. Tyler, ask Gregor the intern when he's finishing that article for me. Classic Bagged Milk. Everyone, after the debate about my shoes, which never goes away, wants to know what color my shirt is. Is it pink or purple? I think it's a violet. I think it's a fair way to describe it.
Yeah, it's a bold color. Yeah, I would say it's probably more purple than pink for sure. I don't see that as pink at all.
You want to know
is that mauve?
I don't know what mauve is. I'm not that distinguished.
No, I think it might be.
You were joking about not feeling great today. My state earlier today, I left my hotel room, went and had breakfast with our other intern, Jacob. Went and had breakfast with him. Craig Button was there, said hi to Craig Button. Came all the way here, Uber, walked through lobbies, got set up for a show, and then I go to meet up with Adam Seaborn and Nick Alberga, and they go, hey, man, your shirt's on inside out. Somehow I was wearing a golf shirt inside out, collar up still. And I went to multiple places this morning. Oh,
my goodness. Jeez. Mixing a water in the morning, eh? Mixing a water at night, possibly. Yeah, that's definitely mauve, right? Because it's a pale purple.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There you go. It's a mauve
Bag
shirt.
Milk has no idea what mauve is, but that's what it is. It's an actual color.
Oil fan says, Oil fan's timeout's over and says, I can't believe I got muted. You could have explained the rules at the beginning of the show. Well, now you know. If you're a new listener, you know not to say trade Jack Campbell. It gets you in trouble. Dangerous way.
That is a fantastic thing, man. That's unbelievable. I wish there would have been that on Oilers Nation in the Puljujarvi days. Because you notice all the pro Puljujarvi people have yet to admit that they were grossly incorrect in overvaluating him. Remember when he was the best defensive forward on the team? Okay. Remember when people actually believe that?
Here's the thing that irritates me a little bit with the debates around those kinds of players, though, is there are a lot of people who are in that camp, and when they're wrong, the fans of Puljujarvi, when they're wrong, they just go, well, he's not being used right. And it always goes, I always get a chuckle when people say that. Yeah, when a player doesn't pan out and it goes, right. Oh, well, this team just ruined him. That's why he wasn't good. Or they just don't know how to use him. That's why he's not good.
Yeah.
Aaron has the color mauve he can bring on screen if we want. Yeah, you're bang on. You're bang on with that. There you go. Gregor knows his colors. Let's move along with the show. Get to our Betway Other Sports report before we hop back into the inbox. Shout out to Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. The Jays kick off a series against the San Francisco Giants tonight, and I believe Kevin Gausman is getting the start in the opener for Toronto. That means it is time to bet on the Kevin Gausman strikeout prop. I like him at 7 or 8+ Ks. The Jays are big favorites in this game on Betway, though, at -170. Plus 115 on the run line is definitely a tempting one. Or, oh, there you go. I found it, everybody. We're good. We got our bet of the night. Jays to win, Gausman 6+ Ks, even money on Betway. You can lock that one there.
6+?
Oh,
he seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, he crushes his prop.
Yeah. That's I would take that one all day long.
Circling back to hockey, Betway also has some NHL draft props.
Did they have Bedard going first?
Yeah, no, they have pulled that one now. But the last I checked when they had it up, you would have had to bet $100,000 to win $10. So, I mean, if you have the cash laying around and you need an extra tenner, it's probably easier ways to do it than betting on Connor Bedard going first. The one I like, they have the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th picks in the exact order. Fantilli 2, Carlson 3, Will Smith 4. There's some chatter that the Sharks do like Will Smith at 4.
I will. Yeah, there is. I will say this. I think if Michkov doesn't go in the top 5 picks, I think it's those teams are going to have, outside of Chicago, significant regret.
Yep.
I talked to a few people last night at the awards who had met with Michkov.
Mm-hmm.
So you can figure out which teams are meeting. Obviously, he's not meeting with guys outside of the top 10. It doesn't make much sense. And it's funny how they were almost kind of, oh, geez, he's very impressive. And I really liked him. And I'm kind of like, well, it's almost like they've created this idea that Michkov, it's like they're trying to find reasons not to like him.
There's been this like mysterious cloud about him because not a lot. Frank talked about this today on DFO Live. Like, not a lot of people got to see him in person this year and watch him play. And then there was the thing with his dad, and then there's the thing about his contract and all this. To me, you are getting a guy who 12 months ago, this was the Bedard draft, but there was a moment in time it was like, this is the Bedard Michkov decision.
Yes,
we're not that far removed from that. And okay, you won't get him for 3 years. If you are San Jose or Montreal, are you going to be contending for a Stanley Cup in the next 3 years? No. You know what's going to be great, though? 3 years from now, when you're looking to make a jump into competing, having Matvei Michkov score you 35 goals on his ELC for 3 seasons. Like, even that element of it, one, picks in that range, you outside of the top 1 or 2 or whatever, usually need a year in the minors anyways. Sometimes they even need 2. What's the problem waiting 1 more if you get a potential Kirill Kaprizov level player on his ELC when he's closer to the prime of his career, and you're one of these rebuilding teams, and maybe you're actually freaking good by then?
So think about the 2020 draft, right? So when you think of the 2020 draft, which players are you like, man, that guy's just been killing it? Tim Stützle would be one.
Yep.
Anyone else? Like, I like Lundell. Seth Jarvis is good play, 13th overall pick, right in front of. But think of Alex Lafreniere, right? 3 years since he was drafted, and now they're like, oh, why? Rushing 18-year-olds to the NHL. Leon Draisaitl is a Hart Trophy winner. Leon Draisaitl is, in my eyes, one of the top 100 players of all time.
Yep.
Leon Draisaitl was not ready at 19 in the NHL. At 19,
and they tried to force him in, and it was like, no, it won't work.
So these teams take everybody talks about you have an analytics department. Why don't you just crunch the numbers on draft picks, people? I can tell you the NHL and teenagers rarely mix. Now, you have McDavid's, you have Sidney Crosby's. There's a few, no question about it, right? Look at Nathan McKinnon. Go back and look at his 18, 19 years, right? Nathan McKinnon wasn't dominant. It's hard. It's hard to do. So if you get Michkov and you don't get him till he's 21, it's unbelievable, right? Artemi Panarin, you mentioned Kaprizov. Guys, they come here, they're in their 20s. You have so much better chance, as you talked about it, Ty, like the bang for your buck on all 3 years of your ELC, excuse me, are going to be infinitely higher. And San Jose, even Columbus, like I know Columbus, they probably want a little bit quicker bang for their buck, but Don't do it. Don't. I'm sorry. Like, I'm very curious what Pat Verbeek and the Anaheim Ducks do, because I like Adam Fantilli. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad pick at all, but if you're the Anaheim Ducks and you live in a pretty major market.
Yep.
Michkov, and you don't have him for 3 years. Like, Anaheim's in a rebuild still.
Also, you never know. That could change too. 2 years into that, he could easily,
and that's the other thing. He might only be 2 years, which is even better. So I think there was a prop bet. Look at Betway on Anaheim. What are the odds Anaheim at number 2, Michkov at number 2?
11-1.
So, you know what?
Can you imagine the reaction in that rink if Anaheim slides up and does that? I don't think Columbus is going to do it at 3. We had Jarmo Kekalainen on the DFO rundown, and he said, we're getting a franchise center at 3. And also Kekalainen is a little bit GMing for his job here. He can't afford to wait 2 or 3 years to see if Michkov is going to come over and pan out and whatnot. So, Michkov at 2.
Like San Jose at 4, I don't see why they like they're going nowhere. Very quick. They got some veteran guys, Erik Karlsson obviously would like to get moved. You've got Hurdle and Couture. They've moved out Timo Meier. Like, they don't have a ton of prospects. Eklund, I like actually what he showed last year, young guy, but I look at San Jose, man. And if Mike Grier has the long-term vision of where they think that team's going to be, Michkov, if the Sharks at number 4, to me, that would be like Adam Fantilli. Okay. I can see that, but are you kidding me? If they don't take him at 4, I think the Sharks, they will have such regret.
Take him. He also says best case would be the Capitals IMO. And best case, if you're talking about a team that could maybe get him here as quick as possible, because Ovi's got pull over in Russia. Christopher Palmer agreed with you. He said San Jose will do it simple. Grier will do the right thing. I think Grier is probably leaning towards a college guy. That seems to be the direction they want to go. It's the direction they went with their head coaching hire as well. Taves to Edmonton said a Michkov-Bedard rivalry like Sid and Ovi would be awesome for the NHL.
Yes.
Those kind of storylines are great. They are.
100%. And so then that's why Anaheim, then you have 2 teams in the West, not in the same division, but at least in the same conference. So I really am curious to see Michkov, whoever takes him, because there's not many draft picks that I get that I'm not high on, to be honest, because it's hard.
Yep.
But man, I really like this player a lot.
Bag Milk is in the chat again. Like I said, I want to first off make sure he sees clearly I'm drinking Voss like a fancy boy on my vacation. Also, he says he has chocolate milk in his fridge and the best before date is today. How much chocolate milk is too much chocolate milk? How hard do you respect best before dates on products? I'm a hardcore. I see it and I'm like, done. Garbage.
No, not at all. I think it varies from what
depends on the product.
The product is, yogurt can last a long time. I just smell it. So to me, it's all about, like, cottage cheese is the one that I will look at for sure. And then it's just all about smell and taste. But I don't like the milk best before date. It's bag milk, right? First of all, it's great that you're still 10 and that you're drinking chocolate milk like my son is all the time. But a best before date on chocolate milk, like, come on. It's not, to me, I wouldn't even consider that. It would probably have to be at least 5 days before I'd be too concerned about chocolate milk.
My thing is I don't nose. I guess I'm just not as experienced. I don't trust my nose. I look at it and I go,
you can just take a small taste.
Yeah.
Like, milk's pretty easy. You can tell if it's not good.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I know some people are very, best before date, it's out. That's just a guideline, people. So it's a guideline. Live on the edge a bit.
Tyler Mulick says it's a best before, not discard after, which is I guess a good way to do it. Yes, Bag Milk, you're not a big boss unless you've got that Voss. And that's a big bottle of Voss as well that I've just been refilling consistently in my hotel room. I do that on these things. I just buy a reusable water bottle at the airport. First thing I do, buy one, and then I just refill it throughout the whole trip.
Why don't you just have like a metal one and just bring it?
Because then it's too heavy.
I'll show you my water bottle. There's no chance. Give me that thing. It doesn't weigh any more than mine. It's too heavy. Mix in a weight.
Yeah, I know. But I just mean, like, in my bags and stuff, and then you clunk it around. Then what if you lose it in a foreign city and then you can never get it back? I just like the convenience of.
But you buy a different one every time?
Yeah, I just buy.
Why not just keep this then?
Are the plastics good for you? I don't know.
Well, that's why I don't have plastic. I have metal.
That's a good point. I guess I can't have the best of both worlds. What's your prediction on the next thing we see here? I know the top 5 on Frank's trade targets board. I think we have that up potentially, AB, or we can throw that up on the screen here for people to see. Hayes is off. PLD, we're going to say is off. So that's 1 and 3 off the board. If you had to take a stab, Greg's, which one of these do you think comes off next?
Oof. Hellebuck, Scheifele, DeBrincat. We haven't heard anything on Scheifele. It's been very quiet.
Nothing.
Right?
Which I would love if we got like the New Hook deal came out of nowhere, but that's a small trade. It just feels like, with some of these guys, Dubois, Hayes, we heard the rumblings for so long that when the trade happens, it's kind of like, okay, it happened. I would love to be just totally stunned with something like a Scheifele move.
Because you look at Scheifele, if he's traded tomorrow, I'm assuming it's to a team like the DeBrincat last year, right? Like he was traded for the 7th overall pick. Yeah. So you start to look at teams in that range, right? The Detroit Red Wings are the one team when I look at to say, like Steve Yzerman, at some point you want to see improvement in Detroit. They've had improvement, but look at Buffalo, look at Ottawa. They're all kind of similar improving. And Detroit, you could argue, was maybe slightly below them. So are they ready to take a step? And for Steve Yzerman to say, you know what? I'm going to unload this 9th overall pick. We don't need, because the 9th overall pick really isn't helping you for 3 years, which is funny because people don't want to draft Michkov because he's not helping you for 3 years, even though so many guys will go back to junior for 2 years. It's hilarious. But I look at the Detroit Red Wings, and when they're on the clock, because look at their center depth.
Yeah.
That's a team to me that makes a lot of sense for Mark Scheifele.
Looking at 6 through 10, Kuznetsov, Karlsson, Hanifin, Gibson, who is another name. Like the goalie market's just kind of weird right now.
If Hellebuck's not getting a lot of interest, Johnny Gibson ain't getting much interest.
That is a good point. The chat it was buzzing a little bit earlier on because they didn't get a chance to see Liam today, and I promised you'd get a chance to see Liam.
Why? What happened to him?
He's just chilling. He's back at the other Sports Closet studio, hanging out.
Hello.
Gregor do it today. I'm good. He's just been interacting.
I thought he was combing his mustache.
It is.
That's a Wednesday activity, not a Tuesday activity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. Liam, you looked at that top 10 from Frank Saravalli. Give me a name who you want to see moved in the next couple of days. Who's the most intriguing?
I guess Connor Hellebuck is the most intriguing because it's just such a weird market, like you guys said. Didn't Pierre Dorian come out today too and say it seems very unlikely that Ottawa will get back in the first round? So that seems like DeBrincat isn't going to get moved anytime soon either.
Unless they're looking for a player for him, but that wouldn't really make sense.
I think they're going to take DeBrincat to club elected arbitration, and which would mean you have to offer him 85%, which is about what's that, 7.7, maybe 7.5, somewhere around there. Yeah. That's a much more manageable number.
Yeah, it is.
And you know what? Like when you see what Kevin Hayes got, which is nothing, virtually nothing.
Yeah.
Why? If you're Ottawa, you don't have to trade DeBrincat. And I think you might want to say, hey, let's kind of see how things go here. Because I think right now you're probably trading him at a lower value than what you think he's worth.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of teams who are maybe starting to see that, the pieces we have aren't as valuable. I think, Liam, you touched on it. I think Hellebuck might be one of them. But the tough part for the Jets is there's no sense in bringing him back. And it's not like he's one of those guys where it makes sense to hold on to him until the deadline either. Like I looked at Calgary and I was like, okay, Backlund, let's say that name. Even Lindholm to an extent. If you held on to them until the deadline, and you're out of it if you're Calgary, you're still going to get a haul. You're going to get a first for Lindholm plus. Backlund, playoff teams would like to add Backlund. Hellebuck, I don't know. I think the best time to trade him is now, and you might just need to gulp and go, we're going to take the best offer we can get.
Yeah. You're Winnipeg. I would, if you're not getting a good market value on Hellebuck in the summer, I'm not trading him. I can go to Canada. I hold on to him because I believe teams right now they're like, everybody's a little bit more, well, we got some weaknesses, but geez, I think if this happens, they convince things will be okay. Now you get into January and February, and all of a sudden you're like, man, our team's pretty good, but geez, we really need a goalie. And you know what? We're close. If we get a goalie that's pushing us over the finish line, I think your emotional state is heightened during the season as a GM. And so teams all of a sudden now would be like, man, Hellebuck, okay, expiring contracts, UFA. Like, teams will give up lots for a defenseman on a 1-year run or a center. We know goalies are pretty important. Why wouldn't you? So I think Hellebuck's the one guy that I would not be rushing into trade right now. And the goalie market, unfortunately, for teams that trade goalies, Ty, like, think of the last time a goalie got a real huge return.
Like Fleury won the Vezina and got shipped out for nothing.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it just goalie trades. How can you think of a time? Oh, we traded this goalie, man, we got a really good haul in return. Like, it just doesn't happen. I'd have to go back and look at goalie trades, but I can't off the top of my head. I don't think one. Like, I think a lot of, oh geez, I got a lot of picks for this guy and this guy, but you know, you don't get that for goaltenders, which is odd, but it's just teams, for whatever reason in trades, they don't feel the need to, they'll overpay for other positions, right? But goaltenders, it just hasn't been that way. Like, go through it. So I think Winnipeg's never going to get a huge return on Hellebuck, unfortunately, but I think you'd have a better chance during the season when you have some competitive teams who feel like, you know what, this could push us over the top.
Do you think also too that maybe Winnipeg would want to wait to trade him until they trade everybody else to know exactly what maybe they would want in return and what they already have?
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like, if they get roster players back from LA in the Dubois deal, maybe they get a first back in the Scheifele deal. Maybe their asking price for Hellebuck could change based on how big of a haul they get for some other pieces. Blake Wheeler's the other name in Winnipeg. The buyout window, for those wondering, closes on Friday, which means you'd have to be on waivers by Thursday as well. So by day 2 of the draft, we should know if there are any other buyouts going on around the league.
And Ken Holland today did admit that he's, and obviously the one that makes sense would be Tyler Yaremchuk because it's 1/3 of his contract and it's 440. What it'd be a cap hit of like 455 this year and then 555,000 the following year. So it's a big savings in cap space. Ideally, they'd prefer to move him so they get rid of all 3.1 million. And I think that trade still, Oiler fans, like, I think that's going to happen. I really do. Now, a similar return on Kevin Hayes, maybe even less, to be honest. Maybe a 7th, maybe it might just be a futures, which in the NHL is a polite way of saying nothing. But so I still think that's kind of like the first move for the Edmonton Oilers.
Aaron, if you could you flash up the top 5 again? I want to get Liam's little matchmaker prediction before we let him go. I love watching Aaron at the bottom, feverishly skipping through all the graphics to get to the one we want. Okay, Dubois is going to LA. Give me your prediction on Hellebuck, Scheifele, and DeBrincat. Liam, one team for each. Go.
Oh man, well, my Scheifele prediction was Colorado until they went and got Ryan Johansson, so that one's not going to work. DeBrincat, I'll just say Detroit. It kind of just makes sense. He's from that area. They need some scoring. Hellebuck, honestly, I'm not going to give one on Hellebuck, which is super lame, but I just don't think he gets made until close to the deadline. So that just kind of will dictate that. And then Mark Scheifele. Oh boy. What
about Boston?
Yeah, the Boston Bruins, that was kind of what I was thinking too. Like, if they don't have Bergeron and Krejci and then Ryan O'Reilly doesn't make out, like, it makes a little bit of sense for him to go there.
Yeah. All right, Liam. Well, you're back at home in the studio. The mustache looks great. New episode of Oilers Nation Radio going to be dropping this afternoon as well for everyone who wants some additional Oilers talk on a Tuesday afternoon. So you enjoy that, big guy.
I will. See you guys later. Enjoy the hot chicken.
Yeah, sportscloset.ca. And if you go to one of their 3 locations, Kingsway Mall, Sherwood Park Mall, St. Albert Mall, you can try on Nation Gear. They have Nation Gear in the store. So if you've always wanted to check out some Nation Gear, that fire truck is like right outside our hotel. That is very loud and distracting.
See,
I'm
the
like
thing
a dog.
about Boston is, what do they have to trade? Right? Because you look at, they don't have a lot of guys signed, right? They got a bunch of, Bertuzzi's UFA, Garnet Hathaway's UFA, Krejci, Bergeron, Nosek, they're all UFAs. I think they've only got like 6 or 7 forwards, right? I don't think, and Trent Frederick, by the way, maybe they qualify him because if you qualify him, he's getting a big race. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
they got Coyle, Pavel Zacha, they don't have a ton of guys signed in Boston other than the blue liners. So and Winnipeg, I think they need help on the back end. Is there a trade? Would Brandon Carlo be a centerpiece for a deal for Mark Scheifele? Because he would have to be, right? You've got to give up something, and they don't really have any forwards to offer.
Yeah.
Although I'll say this: what about Jeremy Swayman? If you're dealing Hellebuck, Swayman can go to Winnipeg.
Swayman and Carlo for Hellebuck, Swayman and Carlo for Scheifele. Is that maybe too much?
Right, that's interesting. It's Scheifele's a really good player.
Yeah.
All right. I think, and when you look at the return, if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I am not rushing into dealing Mark Scheifele. I want to deal from a position of strength because history tells us you can get a good return for a centerman. History tells us that, unless you want to be the Boston Bruins and don't tell anyone you're trading Joe Thornton, and then you don't get very much for him. But everybody knows Scheifele's out there. I think that's a guy that you could get good return for. But I'm still telling you, the Detroit Red Wings on draft day, Ty, when they come up at number 9, I think Scheifele to Detroit makes a lot of sense.
Interesting. A good veteran to slide in there would make a ton of sense. Lots of news today flying around the NHL. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to chew on tomorrow. Yourself and Frank are going to be doing an episode of the DFO Rundown in the morning. In the afternoon, we'll be back with this show again, noon Mountain Time, Daily Face-Off live at 10 a.m. Mountain Time as well. So we'll have you covered over here at Daily Face-Off on Oilers Nation for night 1 of the NHL draft tomorrow night, live from Nashville, all thanks to our friends at AMA Travel. Also, Sherwood Ford the Giant, go test drive a car, leads to a donation to a good cause, the Strathcona Community Hospital Foundation. Betway for the other sports report, and Sports Closet for the Sports Closet studio. Jason Gregor's appearance on the show, and he'll be back tomorrow, and he'll be back on Thursday. That's brought to you by The Brick and Papa John's. How about this? Producer Aaron Bordato used the promo code TERRIFIC while he was working and has a pizza coming for lunch. That's a smart man right there.
50% off, baby. See, how can you pass that up? You owe it to yourself to do it.
50% off at papajohns.ca when you use the promo code TERRIFIC, because it is Terrific Tuesday and a terrific amount of trades today around the NHL. Great stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube. Like the video before you close. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll chat again tomorrow at noon Mountain Time.